you'll have to keep it down a little bit. Like I said, I'm Corporal Goldman, University Police Department. I've been here for about 3.5 years. I teach. Are you searching me? I teach RAD on campus, so if any of you have taken that in the last couple of years, I've probably seen you before, but it's a lot of people. It's hard to keep track of everyone. So just to give you a rundown how we're going to do this, I'm going to give you a few kind of safety tips that have to do with college life and spring break and all that good stuff. And we're going to have some questions. I'm going to need a couple volunteers later on. We'll still, I already got one. That's usually not how it works. Can everybody hear me fine?
No, we can't hear you back here.
I'm sorry, I'll try to talk louder, but it's painful. All right, so in general, I know everybody's always heard, you know, if you're under 21, you're not supposed to drink and all that good stuff. I'm not going to try to beat that into your head. You've already heard that before. Let's be honest, if you're under 21 and you're going to drink, you're just going to do it. Am I right? It's okay. I've got no hand. So, one thing that I like to tell people is that once you get to college, even if you're not 18 yet, I still want you to consider yourself an adult. You're a responsible adult. Just act that way. It's really easy to avoid getting in trouble or get in a risky situation by just knowing your own limits. So, if you're under 21, the law says you can't drink, but let's be smart about that. Instead of me trying to pound into you, don't drink anything, be smart about it. Get to your limit and try to stay away from there. And then of course, you know, you're not supposed to, if you set your drink down and leave it unattended, don't go back to it and drink out of it. You never know what somebody could have done to it. And it's not always drugs that somebody could have put in there. Somebody could have spit in there, and that's just gross. So, just leave it alone. Let's be honest, it's free anyway, so just throw it away. It's no big deal. Does anybody have any questions about alcohol or anything like that? I know you guys have heard it a lot, so I don't like to spend a lot of time on that unless you have questions on it. Yes, ma'am.
Will you explain the importance of like BAC and to know your limit and like what could happen if you go past that limit, please?
Yeah. Well, BAC is your blood alcohol content, and that has to do with your body weight, your gender, and how much you drink. So the important thing to remember about that is it's not so much about what your actual blood alcohol level is. You can actually below the legal limit and still get a DWI. So if you're drinking, and of course if you're above 0.08, it's an automatic done deal. But you can actually be below that level and still end up going to jail and having your car impounded and have to deal with all that. So that's another important thing is if you are going to drink, stay away from being behind the wheel. I mean, it's a whole lot cheaper to get a $25 cab than it is to pay somewhere around $5,000 in DWI fees and spend the night in jail. So it's not fun. And there are charts available online. I didn't bring any with me. But you can estimate what your blood alcohol content is by your weight and how many drinks you've had. And I've had a lot of people, when I work fraternity parties and stuff, I'll ask them how much they've had to drink. They think one drink is one solo cup, which isn't true if it's full of vodka. That's like 5 drinks. So that's one thing you got to keep in mind. When it comes to hard liquor, 1 ounce is 1 drink. So then actually those solo cups are marked for you to know that kind of thing. The lines at the bottom show 1 ounce, so that's 1 drink for alcohol. There's a line close to the middle for wine, so that's like 13 to 15% alcohol, and that shows you what 1 drink is. And of course, from the top to the bottom for beer or other malt beverage like that is 1 drink. So when you try to start counting how many drinks you've had for the night, you have to take into account what it is you're drinking, which is why you should always make your own drink so you know what's in there. How many of you guys do that when you're out drinking? Or, okay, we're going to say everybody here is 21, okay? So when you're out drinking, how many of you actually make your own drinks and you let other people make them for you? So I should see way more hands up. Everybody, if you're gonna have a drink, make it yourself unless you're in an actual establishment where you can, you know, trust that the bartender is actually has more of your best interest in mind. And of course, everybody knows in Arkansas, just so you know, if you're under 21 and you have alcohol on your breath, that's actually a minor possession. So just keep that in mind. It's It's not something that we go out and look for, that we're just trying to find people under 21 and smell their breath. That's a time bomb. You don't want to do that anyways. But that's something to keep in mind, that if you get past your limit and it starts being very apparent that you're intoxicated, if you're under 21, it's not very difficult to end up in jail. Nobody wants that. So in review over that, know your limits. Try to estimate your own blood alcohol content by using the number of drinks you've had, and it kind of helps you keep track if you're, if you can actually do that. And I've actually had some people at fraternity parties that write it down. So I like to have a little list. I was one of that drinks tonight. They've got a little list for me. This is what I've had. It's a little weird, but they're keeping track of it, and that's keeping them safe. So I can't knock that. All right. Next thing I want to talk about is a little bit of, I guess, drugs and other intoxicating things that aren't alcohol are kind of making a resurgence on campus. I actually had someone come and tell me that they're at a off-campus function with Kappa Sig, and there was a lot of people doing cocaine. I'm serious, and I don't really usually get in a soapbox on people about drugs.
Hey girls, no talking!
But it's one of those things that you have to be aware of. It's really dangerous. You know, I'm in law enforcement, so we'll arrest people for marijuana, but we also have done research on it. I've done my own independent study. People don't overdose on marijuana. That's just a fact. It's illegal, but to me, it's in a different class. But when you get to some of those other drugs, or when people just hand you pills and tell you to take them and just wash them down with alcohol, that makes it really easy to overdose. And it's difficult for us to tell what's going on. So you could be in the middle of an overdose and you just look really drunk. And I think, well, you looked way too drunk to take care of yourself, so I'm going to let the jail take care of you. Well, the best thing for you would be to go to the hospital, but I'm not a doctor. There's no way I can know what it is that you've taken, and it can be really dangerous for you. And that's not just the illegal street drugs that everybody talks about. You're not supposed to mix Adderall and alcohol. I used to work in a pharmacy, so I know my drugs. So there's a lot of things that are over the counter that you're not supposed to mix alcohol with, or just drugs you're not supposed to mix together. So it gets really dangerous if you allow somebody to give you something and let them tell you, oh, this will make you feel good, and you don't really know what it is. That's another little dangerous thing. Does anybody have any questions on drugs, illegal drugs, legal drugs for that matter? So there's no drug addicts in here? And just stay away from the math. Just look at the before and after. That should be enough. That's pretty easy. All right, how many people do we have that are going out of town for spring break? All right, how many people are going out of the country on spring break? Mexico counts as out of the country. That counts. Anybody going to Canada over spring break? I didn't think so. I was just checking. Okay.
Hey y'all, please stay quiet.
Is everybody going to like beach locations and all that kind of stuff? Yeah, I've got a few little safety tips for everyone, and it's not going to be the traditional don't get kidnapped. I think we all know that we don't want that to happen. One thing a lot of people overlook: if you're not a strong swimmer or you don't spend much time in the ocean, don't swim out too far, because rip currents will take you miles away and you'll never be seen again. And it sounds funny, but I'm not a strong swimmer. I know, reinforcing the stereotype, I'm sorry. But it actually almost happened to me when I was in Aruba. And I'm out there having fun, and all of a sudden I'm just moving out, and I'm underwater and I can't breathe. So it wasn't a fun experience for me, and I don't think it's fun for anybody. Another thing is, when you're doing updates on social media, be careful about what you say, because for one thing, if I look in your Twitter and you like hashtag Cancun or something, well, I'm pretty sure you're not wherever you live. So if I'm somebody who's local around here and I find out, well, you live in an apartment that's below me and I see that you're not here, I can break into your apartment and steal your stuff where it's gone. I wouldn't say try to be a spy while you're traveling and not let anybody know where you're going, but it gets a little dangerous when you give people a map of everywhere you're going to be and when you're going to be there, because people who want to see it like your friends, they like it, but then, not everybody in the world is your friend either. Is anybody here going with a group of friends on spring break? Okay, this is going to sound extreme, and I'm sorry, but it's a good practice. When you're with your friends, you should come up with a code word so that if one person says a word, you know that they feel uncomfortable in whatever situation they're in. So if you split up and one person's talking to a guy and they kind of whisper to you, you can give them an out to get away from that situation. Especially when you're out of the country, because I hate to say this to try to scare anybody, but Mexico is not a very safe place right now. People are routinely kidnapped there and held for ransom, where they do get returned, but it's not an experience anybody really wants to go through. So, and on top of that, I would also recommend always, if you're going to go out, have a set place that you'll meet at if you get split up. That way, if you lose someone, you go to your meeting place, and instead of just wondering if they're going to make it back to the hotel or not, you know when they should be back at the meeting point. If not there, you can notify local law enforcement to help find that person before it gets to be too late. Let's see. And if you're going out of the country, if you've traveled before, I know a lot of people, I never carry my passport with me. If I'm out, once I've settled in, I lock it up in the safe in the hotel room, and I don't take it with me because they're a high dollar item for people to steal. But you should go ahead and take a photocopy of it, because if you have to go to the U.S. Embassy or request help or anything, a photocopy isn't an official document or anything, but it'll get you a whole lot further than just trying to convince someone that you're an American. You know, usually they can tell. I can tell you in Italy, they can look at you, because I got called a stupid American way too many times to be fun. So. It's okay, I deserved it. I didn't even learn any of the little phrases that you should know when you go to another country. It was a bad idea, I did it anyways. The last thing I would say is to carry a written list of phone numbers, because phones are a hot thing to get stolen. I mean, I'm sure everybody here knows somebody that's had a phone stolen at some point. They bring a lot of money really quick. So if you get in a situation you don't have your phone, we all have had that moment where you're like, I don't know